Hi, everybody. I just wanted to talk about something that I realized recently, a habit that I want to shake, if you will, and that is scaring yourself. I think that scaring yourself is it's similar to catastrophizing, but it's also a sign of that you've undergone some sort of sociopathic abuse. When you're involved with one of them in any capacity, really, they repeatedly try to scare you about the future, and to basically give you ultimatums and conditions that if you don't do this, something bad will happen. And you know what I mean. Basically, if you don't listen to me, this is gonna happen. If you don't wash the dishes, this will happen. So basically, this fear, they make you feel as though if you don't do something, there will be some sort of negative consequence attached to it. And the imprint that leaves on your psyche is that you scare yourself. And sometimes I catch myself doing this, even now. I tend to say things that I'm going to do, or state goals that I'm going to do. And immediately after that, I think about what negative event could happen if I do this or if I do that. And I scare myself. And I was watching a documentary on the NXIVM cult. And for those of you that don't know about it, it's on Stars. But basically, one of the people that was in the cult, India, I believe her name is, said this as well. She described it as she scared herself and examined her behavior. And it comes from the micromanagement of the narcissist. Because when you live with a narcissist, they control every aspect of your life. And so when you step out of that control zone, the fear is instilled in you. And even when you're removed from a sociopathic environment, like I've tried to do, you still have that fear response. It's within you. The fight and flight response that if I do something independently, I've transgressed. It takes a long time to uncondition yourself from that. It will happen eventually, but even then, you tend to kind of spook yourself about the future. And I'm here to tell you that ultimately the future will be much better for you. And to stop scaring yourself and stop being apprehensive about what will happen. What will happen if you do this? The truth is, nobody knows what will happen. And we can all live a great rest of our lives, or our lives will be laced with issues like anybody's life is. But try to stop scaring yourself. When you catch yourself thinking like that, because that's like a remnant of the sociopathic abuse. Assuming the worst case scenario is how they get you to acquiesce to what they have to say. They allow you to associate safety with their words, with what they want you to do, and trepidation and fear and being scared with what you want to do. And that's a big obstacle to overcome. And the only way to really overcome it is by proving to yourself that making decisions and speaking your voice and doing things doesn't produce negative outcomes, you know. And we're very critical of ourselves when our decisions do produce negative outcomes. But it's like Roosevelt said during the Great Deal, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The less you spook yourself into thinking that something will happen if I do this. And when you catch yourself doing that, just remember that that's not you, and that's not a byproduct of who you are as a person. It's a byproduct of the conditioning, you know. And it's actually very liberating to know that, because you understand that the more you understand that, the less prone you will be to being scared. Because it's repetitive, you know? It's like you do something, then you scare yourself, and then you're like, wait a second, this is bullshit. And this is a product of the conditioning. It helps to watch videos of cults or watch documentaries on cults because it's the same conditioning. It's like in order for them to gain an advantage, a power differential over you, they have to convince you that your thought process, your critical thinking, will lead to a negative outcome, will lead to fear. And that's where the scaring yourself comes in. When you're removed from them, you start scaring yourself. And you just have to know better at some point that whether you fail or succeed in a given situation is not always a byproduct of you. It's a byproduct of lots of things. Luck, the environment, people, etc. The whole world is trying to scare you, it seems sometimes. So the last thing you want to do is to scare yourself and to convince yourself that something bad will happen if you act in any particular way. And it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, because the dependency on what they've said and what they've wanted you to do has kept you alive if you're the son or daughter of a narcissist. So to shed what has kept you alive in your mind, to shed the thought process that has in your mind kept you alive, is difficult. And even now, 3.5 years removed, I'm noticing that in myself, and I'm learning to ignore it and to not give weight to it, because I know that it's bullshit. Because I know that they're bullshit. Because I've done all the studying that I could possibly do on this topic. And even now, I see myself slipping sometimes into old patterns, and that's entirely okay. As long as I have the awareness to reject these sorts of thought processes, if that makes any sense. You know, be bold in life and don't scare yourself, you know? If you do something that you love, just keep doing it. Just keep at it. You know, failure is not fatal. You know, just keep at it. And know that as long as you love what you do and you have goals and aspirations, you're on the right path. And don't scare yourself into trying to justify not doing those things, because that's essentially how you liberate yourself from the bullshit that you've been fed by them, that fear and scaring yourself, scaring other people. Sometimes we even scare other people and discourage other people, not because we want to, but because that's the conditioning that we received. So from here on out, think positive and stop scaring yourself and encourage yourself instead. Every time you catch yourself slipping back into the paradigm of, well, what if this or what if that, say, you know what? This is going to work out. This is going to work out just fine. Within a year, I will do this in X, Y, or Z. That's really the only way to uncondition yourself from slipping into these thought processes. So that's all I had to say. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care. Kisses.